Get ready, change is coming. And with it, a necessary boundary. You must stop being so available to everyone. If you don't, you risk giving your breakthrough away to those who were never meant to carry it. Being emotionally open to everyone is not kindness, it's self-neglect. You were never meant to be this reachable. That version of you, the one who replies instantly, says yes too easily, and shares deeply with those who haven't earned it, is not your truth. It's your survival mode. The self that was conditioned to believe love equals availability, silence equals rejection, and presence equals value. It's time to protect your energy. Let the real you rise, but something is cracking, and it's not subtle. As Venus prepares to enter Gemini around July the 3rd, the emotional tides are pulling back. We're shifting from feeling everything to questioning everything. And even though the shift hasn't technically happened yet, we're already feeling it. This isn't ghosting. This is graduation. Venus in Gemini doesn't want your heart on your sleeve. It wants your mind sharp, your boundaries cleaner, your yes more sacred. And be careful, because you're being manipulated right now and you don't even know it. Keep watching, because there's one specific way to recognize it, and I'll show you exactly how later on. But first, has anyone else noticed a shift in how people are treating you lately? Like something changed, but you can't explain what. If that's been happening, feel free to share what's been different. Sometimes putting it into words helps you see the pattern you've been missing. But don't get too comfortable, because the real cost of your availability, it's more expensive than you could ever imagine. They didn't want your love, they wanted your reaction. Here's the twist. Most people didn't want you for your warmth, they wanted you for your predictability. Your kindness wasn't being loved, it was being used. And now Venus is pulling the plug. When you stop responding the way they expect, everything changes. The moment you start to withdraw your energy, to stop explaining, to stop pleasing, to stop performing, the entire power dynamic flips. Suddenly, they're confused, agitated, triggered, because the one thing they could count on, your emotional availability, is gone. This is what Venus in Gemini is here to show you. That withdrawal is not rejection. It's strategy. It's self-respect. It's the end of being emotionally predictable in a world that only shows up when it needs something. And once you stop being the easy one, the nice one, the fixer, you start seeing who was never really there for you. Your silence says more than their questions ever will. There's a very specific discomfort that comes over certain people when you stop reacting. You'll start to notice it now, especially as Venus creeps closer to Gemini. Even though the official shift is around July the 3rd, the energetic preview is already in motion. People are getting edgy. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because you've stopped doing what they expect, and that triggers them. Suddenly your silence is the loudest thing in the room. You're not explaining yourself. You're not softening your voice. You're not making yourself smaller just to make others feel more comfortable. And that calmness? It's unbearable to anyone who relied on your emotional reactivity to feel powerful. The truth is, some people only feel stable when they can destabilize you. They've been quietly feeding off your availability, your softness, your willingness to show up even when you're tired, hurt, or uncertain. And now, without that fuel, they don't know who they are. Venus in Gemini is surfacing all of this. It's giving us clarity we couldn't access while swimming in the emotional depths of Venus in Cancer. And now that we're stepping into air, into thought, into distance, into perspective, everything's becoming painfully clear. You begin to see that every forced yes you've said was actually a withdrawal from your own spirit. Every time you reacted just to keep the peace, you were quietly declaring war on yourself. You are no longer interested in being emotionally available to anyone who can't hold your silence with grace. Because when you become inaccessible, when you don't explain, don't chase, don't clarify, People show their real relationship to your presence. And that's when you finally see who was engaging with your soul and who was just hooked on your response. People don't get mad because you changed. They get mad because you stopped making their comfort your responsibility. And this is where things shift even deeper. Because it's not just about becoming unavailable, it's about becoming unpredictable. The most dangerous thing you can do to someone who uses you is stop being easy to use. Let's talk about the illusion of mutual care. The one you've been running on for years. You believed that being emotionally available, supportive, always there, would naturally attract the same kind of devotion back to you, that your reliability would inspire theirs, that your openness would be met with equal presence. But Venus in Gemini is making the script flip. You're starting to realize that for some people, you were never a person. You were a button, something they pressed when they needed a hit of validation, a distraction from their loneliness, a mirror to reflect back their image when they couldn't face themselves. You became their emotional vending machine, and when you didn't deliver what they wanted exactly when they wanted it, they disappeared. Not because you changed, but because their transaction failed. Some people only love the version of you they can access on demand. But here's the power move. You don't need to react. You don't need to correct. You just need to become less predictable, not out of malice, but out of sovereignty. When you're unpredictable, people can't use your patterns against you. When you're unpredictable, they have to pay attention. They have to listen, not just assume. And that changes everything. You stop being entertainment. You stop being an outlet. You stop being the one who's always on call for people who don't even ask how you're doing. And here's what nobody tells you. Predictability is not safety. It's leverage. When you stop showing up the same way every time, people are forced to face who they are without your emotional cushioning. They either step up or they scatter, and both responses are your liberation. What's always within reach is rarely ever cherished. There is a sacred price to your presence, and when you give it away for free, people stop knowing how to hold it. Too much availability makes you common, and what's common becomes a background hum, easily ignored, barely acknowledged, never respected. This isn't about being cold, it's about being precise. If you're always accessible, always replying fast, always saying yes before even asking yourself how you feel, then you've trained the world to see you as easy to get. And here's the uncomfortable truth. People rarely respect what they didn't have to earn. Your energy, your softness, your time, they are currency. But if you're handing them out like samples, you start to notice something ugly. People only show up when they're hungry, never to feed you back. You being always available isn't generosity. It's spiritual self-abandonment in disguise. It's a habit we form when we think love has to be earned by showing up more, doing more, giving more. But Venus in Gemini is changing the game. It's not about emotional endurance anymore. It's about discernment. This transit asks, who actually deserves to access you? Who's earned your time, not just your reaction? Start asking the hard questions. Who texts you when they need something, but forgets you when they're fine? Who expects your forgiveness on autopilot? Who only calls when it benefits them, but vanishes when you need space held? Now, here's the twist. Absence is just as sacred as presence. Sometimes your silence is the highest act of self-respect. Your no is a boundary, not a betrayal. Your withdrawal, that's not punishment. It's the natural response to being undervalued. Stop auditioning for roles you were born to own. Because when you pull back, people start to see. The space you once filled becomes loud. Your absence becomes the echo they can't ignore. And those who truly value you won't be panicked by your distance. They'll rise to meet your new standard. And those who don't, they were only there for the convenience. And they never saw your worth to begin with. But this isn't the end of the key shift. Because what happens next is even trickier. You're about to be tested by temptation. Not every connection is a sign. Some are distractions dressed as destiny. Venus in Gemini doesn't just clear your vision, it opens every door at once, and not all of them lead to something sacred. This is the transit of duality, of options, of curiosity. You'll be pulled in more than one direction, and some of those paths will feel magnetic, irresistible, maybe even urgent. But here's the thing, not everything that stimulates you is meant to stay. This is trickster energy. It's the mental flirtation, the sudden DM from someone you thought was gone for good. It's the intellectual craving that has you chasing validation instead of truth. It's the temptation to test the waters, not because it's right, but because it's there. Gemini energy seduces the mind. It doesn't always speak in feelings, it speaks in intrigue. And right now, you're vulnerable to getting caught in a loop of what-ifs and why-nots. This doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're human. And the universe is watching what you choose when you're given options you once begged for. Temptation is never about the thing, it's about the lesson behind it. Some of you will be tempted to go back to a person, a habit, a mindset you thought you buried. Not because it's right, but because it's familiar. Others will chase new people, new conversations, new mental highs just to feel something again. But be careful, not every spark deserves a flame. Some are just here to burn your clarity to the ground. The challenge now is to pause before you react. Ask, am I being pulled here, or am I escaping something else? Is this person showing me something new, or just mirroring an old wound? You'll feel tempted to prove that you've moved on by entertaining what looks exciting. But true evolution doesn't beg for proof. It shows itself in what you refuse to entertain. This is where discernment becomes your weapon, because Gemini will keep the doors open, but your soul has to decide what's worth walking into. So if you're feeling scattered, pulled in different directions, caught in a web of options, know this. Clarity isn't born from indulging every opportunity. Clarity comes from restraint, from the power to say, that looks fun, but I choose peace. And you'll need that strength. Every time you react without awareness, you spend a part of yourself that you don't get back. Impulses feel small, instant, fleeting, like a text you just had to send, a comment you had to defend, a conversation you couldn't let go. But each one is a thread. And if you keep tugging at every string, your entire energetic system starts to unravel. Here's what nobody tells you. Impulsive reactions aren't just emotional outbursts, they're soul leaks, psychic hemorrhages. They chip away at your clarity, your intuition, your center. And when you add up enough of them, you're left drained, confused, and worse. You start forgetting who you were before you started reacting. Venus in Gemini sharpens this pattern. You might feel an urge to respond to everything, to say something clever, to jump into conflict, to defend your truth. But be careful, this isn't divine expression, this is spiritual exhaustion dressed up as engagement. And what's worse is when you're reacting for people who don't even value the depth of what you're giving. You know the ones, the people who prod you just to see if they still can. The ones who thrive off your attention, even if it comes as anger, sadness, or anxiety. Not all connection is sacred. Some of it is just familiar chaos. You can spend years trying to please people who are committed to misunderstanding you, bending your spirit just to win their approval, earn their love, or make them see your worth. And still, they won't meet you halfway, because they were never interested in meeting you at all. They were interested in moving you, and as long as you're reacting, you're not healing. Trying to prove your value to someone who feeds off your chaos is spiritual self-harm. So what happens when you stop, when you don't text back immediately? That pause is your power. It's the moment the wheels stop spinning, because while they were busy playing the game of triggers, you were learning the language of self-preservation. And if you've been feeling scattered, sensitive, overly reactive lately, it's not just you. Venus is teasing every loose chord in your psyche, But this isn't punishment, it's preparation. For what? For the truth behind control, because manipulation doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Real manipulation doesn't break your walls, it makes you open the door yourself. Remember earlier when I told you that you were being manipulated and you didn't even know it? This is that moment. Let's be clear. Manipulation doesn't always look like gaslighting, shouting, or chaos. That's too obvious. The real danger comes from the subtle emotional landmines people plant inside you. Guilt, obligation, emotional responsibility, and the illusion that if you don't respond, if you don't engage, you're the bad one. This is psychological warfare in velvet gloves. They won't chase you down. They'll just make you feel bad for walking away. And the genius of it, they don't need to control you directly. They just need you to keep reacting. You think it's love because it feels intense. You think it's your fault because they're so calm while you're unraveling. But they're not feeding off your love. They're feeding off your availability, your predictability, your need to explain yourself. The second you step back and watch instead of react, the entire illusion shatters. Because here's the truth, manipulators don't crave resolution. They crave access. They want the version of you that's still unsure, still hoping, still trying to fix it. But when you become unavailable, not rude, not mean, just unreachable, they have nothing to grip onto, no emotional anchor to twist. You want to watch someone reveal their true face. Stop reacting. Stop explaining things they already know. When you go quiet, their power shrinks, because their whole control was based on you playing a role. They weren't connecting to the real you. They were feeding off the version of you that still believed your pain could change them. But pain doesn't heal pain. Silence does. Distance does. Truth does. And in this Venus in Gemini chapter, your truth isn't in how much you can endure. It's in how much you refuse to carry. Because the next phase of this shift, it's the final break, where you stop trying to be understood and start learning how to live free. Letting go of who drains you isn't losing love. It's making space for the kind of love that doesn't require you to shrink. There's something magnetic about emotional detachment, but not in the cold, distant way most people imagine. True detachment isn't about shutting down or becoming numb. It's about cutting the energetic cords to what no longer serves your soul's expansion. It's about reclaiming the energy you've been leaking into dead-end dynamics and redirecting it toward what actually stimulates, expands, and excites you. Venus in Gemini is the rewiring phase. This is where emotional loyalty takes a back seat to vibrational compatibility. It's where you stop choosing people based on how long you've known them or how much you've sacrificed, and start noticing who actually matches you now. And sometimes that means people fall away. Yes, but they don't fall away because you changed. They fall away because you finally stopped participating in the loop. You're not cold, you're clear. And what happens when you become emotionally clear? New timelines open. People start showing up in unexpected ways. You find yourself drawn to those who challenge you intellectually, who inspire spiritual conversations, who mirror your multidimensional self back to you without draining your life force. That's the Gemini magic. It's curious, magnetic, unpredictable. It doesn't want to tie you down. It wants to activate you. This detachment doesn't mean you've stopped believing in love. In fact, it means you've stopped settling for anything that isn't love. You're no longer addicted to drama disguised as passion. You're not mistaking effort for connection. You're not trying to perform your worth just to get breadcrumbs of attention. You're not avoiding love. You're making love evolve. And don't be surprised if someone new comes into your field soon. Someone whose presence doesn't feel like chaos, but like freedom. Someone who sees your quiet detachment not as distance, but as discernment. That's the kind of connection Venus in Gemini is attracting now. Because when you detach from what drains you, you make space for what completes you. And that kind of opening, it bends reality. The moment you stop fighting for the wrong connections, the right ones recognize you immediately. You are not obligated to remain who grief, trauma, or survival forced you to become. This is your rebirth. Not in a vague, spiritual cliché kind of way, but in the visceral, real-time shift that begins the moment you stop needing to be understood by the people who never really saw you in the first place. Venus, stepping into Gemini, marks a cosmic permission slip to change everything. This is a frequency that demands fluidity, not emotional loyalty to your pain, not consistency for the sake of other people's comfort, but bold, unapologetic, rapid-fire evolution. You are allowed to change mid-sentence. You are allowed to become someone your past wouldn't recognize. You're allowed to explore a new version of you, even if it makes others uncomfortable. This energy is not about healing what broke you. It's about remembering who you were before it happened, and maybe even becoming someone stronger than that. You're no longer here to... You've spent so long playing the dependable one, the agreeable one, the safe space for everyone else, while inside you slowly unraveled. But that era is over. Now is the time your voice sharpens, your boundaries become non-negotiable, your presence unmistakable, whether others can handle it or not. You're stepping into a season where love, clarity, and aligned opportunities find you effortlessly. But with that, you'll also lose approval, old roles, false safety, and that's not your downfall. It's your becoming. This isn't collapse. This is clearing, because when you stop showing up for the version of yourself shaped by survival and pain, you finally make space for the version that was born to create, to lead, to disrupt, to walk into rooms and change the atmosphere. This isn't just a shift in how you show up for others, it's a rewrite of what it means to be you, what you permit, what you walk away from, what you'll never again shrink to fit. Venus in Gemini isn't here for your worn-out grief story. It's here for your curiosity, your boldness, your willingness to flirt with the unknown, to play, to transform, to shine without waiting for permission. The most magnetic version of you isn't the one who explains, it's the one who simply becomes. So let that version lead. If this message spoke to you, thank you for being here. Subscribe for more soulful insights and feel free to share your story in the comments below. Until next time, keep becoming.